Hello, QSI family. Before we go into Emily's interview, I wanted to introduce myself. My name is Ian Reynolds. I'm with QSI Arkansas. And I had asked Emily if she'd be willing to sit down with me and answer some questions I had about herself and how she got started, and then also answer some questions from the quorum. Well, this portion of the interview is the questions that the quorums had that the media teams were associated with. So that gives you a little preface of where we started. Also want to say that Emily was very generous with her time with us, and I just want to say thank you to her and appreciate the time that she did spend and as much detail as she did going into all the answers that she did. I look forward to hearing what you have to say in the comments after this video, and if you have any suggestions for future interviews or future questions, please let me know as well. Here's the interview. Emily, you've agreed to answer some questions from the quorum, and I have a few here that I thought I'd ask, and feel free to answer away.
Okay.
We had a question that said, Emily, where were you during your 2-week trip this winter?
I can tell you that I did go to Kazakhstan. I went to a couple other places, but that's the only one I can share that I have been to.
And where's Kazakhstan?
Kazakhstan is in Central Asia.
Okay.
The stans, like Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan. It basically connects Eastern Europe to like Russia, China area.
Is WHIP a planted psyop for some people to wake up, as well as to sort the wheat from the straw, about which ones are cockroaches and which ones are not, depending on who you choose, QSI or WHIP's channel?
Wow, what a loaded question. Okay. WHIP is not what you call an intentional psyop, meaning that I know there are narratives out there saying that WHIP is playing a part and he's pretending to be a bad guy. That's false. I have debunked that. I don't know how I can be more clear to people who still believe in that. I don't think it's people inside of QSI, to be honest. I think it's mostly people outside of it. But WHIP is somebody that the White Hats had fully respected, had worked with very closely, just the same as me. They worked more closely with him in the beginning because he had the larger channel, even though what I learned in hindsight is that they actually learned of me before they learned of Whiplash. So I thought that was pretty interesting. But he basically dug himself into a hole. He had everything given to him. He had, the confidence of the White Hats. He had, way more than, I guess, how do I want to phrase this? Like, QSI is a nonprofit channel. So we've been offered to take commission, which I've always rejected. And the only time that I've ever taken something from the developers is when I say, hey, let me turn this into a donation back to the community. So it's either goes to help out and close an ICO, or it goes out as gifts or giveaways or contests, stuff like that. So that way people don't think that I'm doing this for financial gain. I'm doing it so everybody gains. On the other hand, WHIP does it for financial gain. He takes a flat out commission anywhere from 17 to 23%, which is quite large when you think about the numbers we're pulling in. And so that's what I mean by he had everything going for him because he was making a killing doing this. And when we started to call him out saying, hey, NPM is not John Jr., that is a scammer behind the scenes, and I have evidence of this, he would turn around and go, your evidence is not as strong as my evidence. And I would say, what's your evidence? Because you literally have not vetted him. No, I just know that that's John. John won't lie to me. I've been talking to him since before I met you. Oh, so you've been talking to somebody, anonymous online, and that's your vetting process. And so when this eventually flowed through and it started to affect the developers that we still work with today, it became very, very dicey, right? Because now we're dealing with people's actual financial future. And what's supposed to be part of Jacera is heading in this direction where it's crashing and burning by partnering with actual scammers, which we know now will be part of clawbacks, be part of the confiscation of assets, etc. And these people will be getting arrested. So long story short, no, WHIP is not a a psyop designed to wake people up. It's in happenstance that if you understand what's truly going on, that you will wake yourself up. And if you don't, you might go down with the ship before you end up finding out the truth. But the truth will come out eventually, and that'll help snap people awake at the end of the day.
I think that's interesting about Stellar. It allows you to do nonprofit. It allows you to do for-profit. It allows scamming. It allows you to scam if you want. And then it's all being recorded. So it's really in the end up to you.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, it's all about free will at the end of the day. You can't tell someone, don't be a criminal, because they'll go, I'll be a better criminal and I won't get caught. So they're saying, okay, let me just devise all these traps. So when you do criminal activity, we'll just catch you faster and we'll arrest you faster. It's brilliant.
I had another question. Emily, you've told us that you sleep in 2 to 4 hour bursts. I've often wondered how you can sleep like that and then still to do an unimaginable amount of work at the same time for QSI. What is your secret to that? Or do you really not need more, especially continuous sleep?
I have a clone. No, okay, so the easiest way for me to explain it is, have you ever been so excited that you're going, let's say, on vacation the next day? Or maybe wedding jitters, as an example, and you were so excited you couldn't sleep the night before, and you stay up all night going, yes, that's how I feel every day about this. And it can be hard to sustain, but somehow I've done it for years and years and years, so at this point, I almost don't know how to do it, or don't know how to not do it, rather. But it gets me so excited because these are things that we're learning in live time, right? We're helping to write history books. And I guess anybody could say that, but when you look at history and you think about what are the highlight reels of what happened in that decade, guys, we'll be part of that history book. And it's really fascinating to think about. So that gets me super excited where I'm actually mad that there are not more hours in the day, because every day I feel like I get more and more behind on my work. I wish I had more time to actually go through it before the next day started.
That's a great answer. If the galactics, because of our free will, cannot speak through anyone's mouth and participate in, for example, channeling, can they come to, for example, a unit space where they can be met?
Well, I don't know if I interpreted the question the right way, a unit space, so I'll just answer it the way that I know. When we go to Moon Spa, we'll meet the galactics. So if that's considered a unit space, then I guess the answer is yes.
What is the revelation that will finally make people turn to Stellar when they realize what a big deal it is?
Ooh. Okay. I think that this question is when people are always waiting for that aha moment. And the truth is there's no one aha moment. People have different aha moments, and I think some people, very few need one bigger trigger. But I think more often, most people need several small ones that stack up over time. So as an example, if you say, how did you get involved in the Q movement? People normally start with a story, right? It's not one word, this is it. It could be something like a trigger, oh, coronavirus woke me up to the vaccines, but then blah, 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 blah. So what I'm getting at is, guys, this is a process, it's a journey, and everybody is on the journey at a different pace. So we need to let them wake up when they can, because that actually helps with the wave of people coming into Stellar as well, which wave helps with liquidity. It helps with beta testing. So as much as it is very natural, it's also done, let's call it not organically, because Stellar developers need different size waves, smaller in the beginning, growing larger and larger over time to help beta test and eventually gamma test the ecosystem for humanity. So it's planned and unplanned, all kind of combining into one.
Does it not also go back to your now statement? You know, the world's being taught or brainwashed or being told that everything's going to change and everybody's going to just convert and they're going to know right the next day. It's not going to be that way.
No, it won't be like that. I mean, think about it now. From the Q movement, day one, post one till now, I think that probably had less than a couple thousand people. Now look at who's in potentially the bigger Q movement, even though we know they're following the wrong Q team, but at least they're following the movement. And that must be at least tens of millions of people strong. So this is an exponential effect. And when it comes down to like that big one wow factor, again, I don't think there's going to be one. I think it'll be bigger and bigger drops, which we've been seeing in the articles over time. It used to be a little hint. Now it's like smack in your face, and now it's like multiple smacks every day in your face. And we're not even in 2025 yet. Because what they're gearing up for is at the end of 2025, when a lot of these NDAs lift, they'll actually start making much more, let's call it specific statements, indicating that one, the QFS is not the QFS, it's the QSFS, the Quantum Stellar Financial System. That information, that narrative shift will start coming out, let's say end of 2025, maybe beginning of 2026. And then as we go through the bigger CBDC beta testing, 2025-26, the metals beta testing that we're all being a part of, that means at some point more people have to get involved because they're trying to grow the base of the beta test. And so, I mean, we're already seeing now there are banks kind of hinting at Stellar. They're becoming more vocal about it. But can you imagine when that day comes when, again, before the public even knows what this is in 2030, you still have, 5.5 years to go. We're going to be hearing a little bit more every single year about why Stellar is the one long before 2030 ever comes. Wow, I've never thought about that question. Great question. I think I'll answer it in terms of D classes because I think that makes the most sense. Like every D class I do, I don't plan it this way, but they end up becoming bigger and more impactful, more meaningful D classes. My aha moment, the reason why I'm having a hard time going, this is my big one aha moment, is because every stage that I evolved into, I had one aha moment for that phase of my life. So, before the Q movement, I was totally apolitical. Or sorry, not before, but before 2013, I was totally apolitical. If people talked about politics, I left the room. That's how much I hated it. But in 2013, I changed my tune because of some personal stuff that happened with my family, family business, and how Obama got involved and basically corrupted the whole system and tried to squash my parents' business. So that was tied into clean energy. That's how I knew the clean energy and the DOE and Obama specifically was very, very corrupt. That's how I started learning about more of the corruption in the background. Then I got the FBI and on stuff, right? So timeline-wise, so that was, the Obama stuff was one big trigger for me. Another big trigger for me was when FBI and on in the Q posts started intersecting in Intel, and then all the public proof started coming and going, oh my gosh, this is not, fun and games. It's not just something you decode. It's real. And if this stuff is real, which it is, it's very serious. We have to fix it. So that was another big aha moment. But then if I talk more specifically about QSI and Stellar, I think that would be in the beginning when you make those statements like Stellar is a centerpiece of the QSFS, and then it became Stellar is a centerpiece of the Q movement, and then all of a sudden you declass that the Q team is the Stellar developers. That was another big awakening moment for me. And there have been a couple others since then. Big Lear Bomb was a great one because you always talk about how the white hats are in control, the military is in control, and they're going to go and basically take control of everything and everyone. But nobody ever says how. It's always theoretical. And because of IBM, their Z operating system, technically speaking, with proofs and evidence and documents, I was able to prove that that's literally what the white hat military is going to do to take over the cabal, right? Like facts, proofs, evidence. So that was another one. And I won't talk about the next big upcoming one because I will be declassing that in a couple weeks from now.
The group purchasing of ICOs has become a fundamental pillar for driving the QSFS forward. Legend has it that the idea came about once upon a time when a Finnish member of the VE group, Finn Kraken, was meditating while raking dry leaves. How is this possible? What would have been the Q team's alternative marketing solution to boost ICOs and spread the word?
Wow, that's a Big question. Okay, so it's kind of a two-part thing. The first about the raking leaves. Now, I've never met Finn Kraken, but I used to work with him on and off until he fudded out. But when I was working with him and we were talking about that analogy, I can totally buy into that. Because when you are tapped into, let's call it the quantum atmosphere or the zone, your inspiration comes from everywhere. One of my biggest D classes that I will put out actually came from me staring at my dinner. I mean, you will just never believe the kind of stuff that you can really focus on and hone into when you are in the right mindset. And if you think about the raking leaves, that actually makes a lot of sense because dry leaves are so light, they tend to scatter with the wind. And as he's trying to consolidate them into, raking and then piling it up into like a trash bag or something, that makes sense because at that time we were all individual people trying to accomplish a bigger goal of hitting certain elements and getting bonuses. But we couldn't because we were individual people with individual needs and wallets, financial capabilities. And so one person can invest this, one person can't. And how, at the end of the day, do you hit a bigger tier, which nobody can do by themselves? And so it was actually pretty brilliant that he thought of, hey, why don't we actually combine forces? Because that is literally the synergy of Stellar. Trust lines, establishing relationships, establishing security, team building, open source, how do you collaborate with other people, decentralize power, and then through open source, gather these amazing ideas from people who are not you, and put it into this framework through Agile that go, oh, wow, that's actually brilliant, and it's way better than anything that I thought of before. That is the epitome of Stellar, so it worked perfectly. But if you think about the second part of the question, what would have happened if that had not happened? I don't know, to be honest. All I know is if that hadn't come along, something else would have come along. And it probably would not have come from me. It probably still, I think, would have come from somebody who's in QSI or affiliated with QSI. Because I know that I have decent ideas, but I know there are so many other people who are way more creative, brilliant, strategic, and if I can tap into their mind, they would have way better ideas than I would. And that, again, that is the collaborative spirit of Stellar. So whether it was through Finn Kraken or through somebody else, it would have had to happen. Because at the end of the day, even let's say nobody was zapped and nobody had a brilliant moment, well, we know through my earlier story that when I told Ben that I had to be, I had to find the research for myself, and suddenly, bing, 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 the zapping started coming, and quantum entanglement started pushing me in the direction of finding my D classes, and, talking to Noah and all that kind of stuff. I am confident enough to say that because of a combination of quantum entanglement plus Q Team and our divine beings are commingled together working on this plan, somebody somewhere would have gotten zapped with the brilliant plan if it weren't for this.
Emily, do you know who you were in your previous lives?
One, yes. The main one, yes.
I've shared that already.
I have not.
You have not? Okay.
I don't know if I can say it this early.
You hinted at it, I think.
I hinted at it.
Yeah, you hinted at it. Okay.
I hinted at it.
Will all non-EU currencies be ICO'd or just the major currencies?
Just the major ones. And so that's not just for currencies, that's also, as an example, for Indus as well. Right? So the biggest ones always go through group funding, and then the second tier will go through a known white hat developer like an Indus X or Swiss Custody, etc. And then the ones that are still important but do not need to be ICO this early on will get minted in the background, what's called the Atom computer on the Anchor platform. So that'll come out into the public way into the future.
What was the first thing you noticed about yourself when you realized you had such incredible special features?
Do you mean skills, I guess? I guess the only way to answer that is, in the beginning, you don't think that you're doing something special. You think that you're just being yourself. And I don't know if other people will feel the same way, but for me personally, these are the skills I've always had, and they haven't always been appreciated everywhere. Sometimes they've been looked down upon. But over here, it's almost like people get celebrated for doing what they're passionate about and what they're actually good at. And it's almost like the white hats and the galactics are telling you that if you have a special skill that you have not been developing because of societal pressure or whatever the case may be, then they're almost stopping you in what you are doing in the 3D world. And they're kind of going, tap, tap, we're trying to encourage you to go down this path so you can actually pursue what your dream is. So I don't think I'm doing anything special. I just think that this is what I was meant to do. And as everybody discovers what they're meant to do, that's when everyone will start to see everybody's natural gift shine.
What events in the history of QSI have you not told us about?
Quite a few. Can I leave it at that?
Sure.
We will reveal a lot more at Moon Spa. I think a lot of this stuff is until the cockroaches are all captured and arrested. I think it's too early to share some of the stuff.
Okay. I would like to hear all about the formation of the QSI management team, how the team was put together, everyone found their specific dedicated positions and jobs.
Well, if we're talking about the current one, I think a lot of it is quantum entanglement. It's people getting zapped and people discovering themselves at the same time too. Because what I've noticed is a lot of people will volunteer for something because they like it or they have some experience, but not necessarily because they love it. And they do it because maybe they did it in a past job. And as they're doing it, then we kind of find out there's something off about it. We don't know exactly what. You know, they have the enthusiasm, but something's not working out in the background. And if we move them to a different team or doing a different project or task as an example, they really start to shine. I think that people are starting to one, discover their gifts a little bit more, but two, we're also finding out through intuition, through the team and like the operation side of it, where to put people faster, where to have them experiment more so they can find out where they need to, where they belong.
What has been the most amazing experience on the QSI trip so far?
I think 2 trips. The first one would be Michigan, the Epic Midwest event. Because when you think about what we're actually building right now, and we're a global community, and we're also a volunteer-only community, how many, let's call it clubs or groups like us or who want to be like us, or maybe who are even larger than us, have wanted to accomplish this and haven't actually never done it. So maybe even just in that term, in terms of quorum building and creating these kind of events, maybe just for that alone we'll already be setting records, new trends in history. But how that evolved is actually very natural because, again, it goes directly into what Stellar is looking for. And the STF themselves have been saying, this is the kind of community-based driven projects that we want people to do. And yet, again, nobody has done it except for us. And so the reason why April was so special, the Midwest event in Michigan during April was so special, is because even though we've had quorum events before, this was the first time that just so many different elements came together. Multiple states came together to even plan the event to begin with, which took so much coordination through a team of, I think there was like 40 or 50 volunteers just to put that, plan and host that event together. And it was phenomenal. And when I asked them, I said, my background is in hospitality. So I've worked with a lot of event planners in my life, professional ones. And I said, who here is the professional planner? And they said, none of us have any of that background. So literally, this is people's natural ability coming in and shining, going, hey, I know how to bake a cheesecake. Let me bake 40 cheesecakes for the team. Or, I'm good at doing this, like logistics. And so they just started, one by one piecing things together until it was this masterpiece. But then on top of that, if you think about the number of people involved, not just on the planning side, but the attendance side, the number of people we had attending Michigan was the same number of people that attended the Stellar Development Foundation's conference called Meridian. Stellar has been around for 10 years. We've been around at that time for 2.5 years. And they invited everybody all over the world, we invited, for the most part, just the 7 states that were part of the planning, but then other states came and they got involved, and we got the same number that this group, professional group with all the funding and all the spotlight and attention and news reports and everything, same attendance. It is insane to fathom how our small but mighty team has accomplished so much. So that really gave me so much proof that our team is bound for so much greatness. So that was the first one. The second one, I'll keep it shorter. On a specific trip, I was able to go and, let's say, establish the validity of everything that we're learning and everything that we're building for. And that was probably one of the most amazing experiences to go through.
If you close your eyes and imagine you as us exactly 1 year from now, i.e. July 2025, and you have sneaky skills we know, what is your dream scenario? Dream big, please, for this community in terms of development, leadership, personal skills, knowledge, local quorums, and where we would be, or an even more clear question, if you prefer that, what is the one thing that has not happened yet that needs to happen in 1 year in QSI?
Wow, that was a big question. I'll answer it in a slightly different context. 1 year from now, well, only half a year from now, we will have finished QP qualification rounds, which means at that point, for the next, let's say, a couple weeks or couple months, the White Hats and I will be going through all the data and we'll be scraping through to see who actually qualified as a QP for all the bonuses coming in the future. So in terms of quorum development, quorum growth, the people involved, the caliber of talent has grown exponentially. So I am very confident that 1 year from now we'll be much, much larger than what we are now. That's a given. So the last thing I'll kind of add is there are so many things that will happen in 2025 that people have been asking for, both inside and outside of Stellar. Although if you think about it, putting on your sneaky hat, a lot of things that are outside of Stellar are actually inside of Stellar. So if people will intuit what that means, then I think they'll figure out what the plans for next year are.
Okay. What are you most looking forward to in 2025?
Well, I already know everything is real and I have great evidence that I cannot declassify right now that it's real. But I think my pride and joy will be for everyone else to find out how real this really is.
And in 2025, you feel like that's that soon?
I feel like there will be enough of pieces of evidence that you can no longer deny any of it.
Wow, okay. Dear Emily, which D class have you found to be the most exciting or memorable to investigate?
I named a couple earlier. So definitely declassing what Q team is was a monster one, I think, for me and for probably the community. Big Layer Bomb, another massive one. I think the next 3 D-class calls, and I'm not talking about unmasking calls either, because we have a couple calls coming up with the developers where they're going to unmask themselves. But I'm talking more about actual information that I've been researching in the background and eventually we'll be putting some slides together for. I think the next 3 are going to be pretty jaw-dropping.
Could we have an organization chart or a trombinoscope? I must pronounce that right. Trombinoscope of the QSI team and the Galactics. Do you know what that is?
Well, I don't even know what that word is, so I definitely don't know if we can make what they're asking for. An org chart?
Yeah, an org chart or a combinoscope.
Okay, well, I can't comment on combinoscope, but an org chart. If they're asking in terms of QSI, specifically, internally, I would say no. Because the team is growing so quickly, and every month that we progress into the future, it's going to grow faster and faster. So it's almost as if until we can find a blockchain method to do this live time, there's really no point in putting out like a traditional pen and paper hierarchy map sorts. If it comes to where we fall in, let's say, the cosmic realm, where do we fit into, let's say, like on the pecking order of angels and galactics and archangels and ascended masters and this and that? That'll be part of a future D class, actually.
Okay. Which developer do you intrinsically feel the greatest connection with?
Ben, for sure.
Emily, what does ascension mean to you?
Ooh, I think even describing or defining the term ascension is part of ascension. Because if you had asked me that a couple months ago, a couple years ago, my answer was different. Maybe if you asked me every couple weeks, my answer might change, because as I'm evolving and I hope I'm maturing in this process, my answer has evolved. It's evolved to encompass a lot of the knowledge that I've picked up over time. So I would say, if you asked me many years ago, it would have been, I want to get to the 5D, right? That's very limited thinking. And if you asked me, a couple months ago, it would have been probably more like informational based. How do I learn more? How do I help other people more? But nowadays, I feel like I'm going to borrow some words from Manuel, because when he talked about expansion instead of ascension, I thought that was amazing. Because ascension, right, he has the duality of you either go up or you go down. But expansion is 360. There's so many avenues that you can increase. So if you take that perspective, I think ascension is actually expansion, which is actually increase. As long as you move every day one step further in whatever direction that means for you, you're getting one step further in finding out who you are and what your mission is and purpose in life.
That's great. What do you think is the maximum size of a quorum?
Do you mean minimum or maximum?
It says maximum.
Well, I don't think that could apply, because as people get involved, then I guess you're limited by the population. So I guess the answer is the population for a single quorum. But then, we're only on planet right now. What happens when we start going off planet in the future? I don't think there's an answer to a maximum there.
I'm not trying to answer this for you, but I know in military terms, like, when you go from a troop to whatever and then your brigade or whatever, there is
Terms for that?
Well, there is maximums as far as amount of people you can manage efficiently, but and this isn't really military though. But this is anyway.
No, because
I wonder if that's what
we're kind of like a club.
Yeah,
we're so casual that we are run like a club, but we are so official and so professional that we're run more like an organization. So it's that hybrid in between where I think that we have a lot of flexibility. So as an example, if your quorum is 500 people right now, why would you not want to have 600? Why would you not want to have 1 million of the people who will live in your city? It doesn't make sense for me to put a cap on it when we know that the potential is much higher.
4 more. You can go to bed maybe for a minute. How many PQs do you estimate there will be by the end of 2024?
1. Me. But I guess if everyone's me and I'm them, then all.
I wonder if they meant
QPs.
QPs.
Yeah, they probably did. There's a number I have in my mind that I've talked to multiple developers about, and it's not a number that I'm comfortable sharing because I think people will be a little bit shocked, but I have dropped hints that it's lower than the number of trust lines that we have. I think people expect that. I think people understand it's a factor of 2 major things right now. One being that there are many people who are investing who are not already in QSI and maybe have no intention of joining QSI, like cockroaches or others. And then even within QSI, there are a number of people who go, I love to invest, I want to be humanitarian, but is QP for me? Maybe not. Maybe I don't want to spend that kind of effort into doing that. I'm very happy doing my humanitarian project, which is amazing because we need people to do that. if everybody flies off and explores new galaxies or whatever the case may be, and we have nobody doing humanitarian projects, then we still need to recruit for that. So I think at the end of the day, the number that we arrive at will be done very organically. And I think people will actually be very happy with the decision because it'll be reflective of what their true interests are.
Awesome. When do you think we'll have access to reading and understanding our DNA?
I think that a lot of these questions will be answered with the medbeds because I think a lot of people are spending, in my opinion, not to poo-poo anybody, but I think they're spending too much time trying to arrive at some kind of destination like QHHT or smoking certain kinds of drugs to get you to a certain mindset and things of that nature. But when I talk to Ivan about this, the developers don't do that. They don't want to do that, and they all say, save it, do it on the med bed where it's totally safe, there's zero side effects, it's only positive effects for you, and then it's the full outcome, not the partial outcome that you may or may not get to. So I'd say DNA stuff, med bed stuff.
Gotcha. So what skills would you like to see added to the QSI community?
I would say a lot, but I think what's more important than listing a bunch of skills is encouraging people just to hone their discernment, hone their intuition, because both have been damaged by the cabal. And when they do that, their natural innate skills will start to rise, and then it'll start to manifest in, oh, suddenly we have these new skill sets. Until people come to that realization, then it doesn't matter how many calls we make, who has XYZ skill, because those people have not discovered, let's call it their self-confidence to want to step up. And maybe at the same time, as we are asking for who has these skill sets, maybe these people haven't joined yet. So maybe we need to manifest them to join first before we can find them.
And last but not least, why not unmask Whip?
Well, I know how I felt when Miriam and all those Khazarians doxed me. And at the end of the day, even though Whip is working with the Cabal, he himself did not grow up as Cabal. He's not a George Soros or a Hillary Clinton, as an example. He's someone who was a good person, technically is still a good person, but he is so confused on what's going on. He actually thinks he's doing the right thing. So it's not my place or my job to throw him under the bus and to put him in a jeopardizing, especially a security standpoint, jeopardizing situation that the Cabal put me in. So when that time comes where he will be unmasked, it'll be done by the White Hats and not by me. So I think that that is respectful of him.
Yeah, quite a bit of sympathy for him, sounds like.
We have quite a bit of history together, and of course everyone wants to see him come around. I am hoping that the medbeds will heal him. We all know that with medbeds there's a degree of will, so we don't know if he ever will come out of that or not, but we all have hope for that, because what I can say is, having met him personally, having kind of seen some of his circumstances, and I've had the pleasure of meeting his family, siblings, best friends, etc., some of his influences in life. This is all when we were trying to help him escape from the brainwashing. He comes from great people who want good things, and they would fit in so well in QSI. So, of course, we all want the best for him. We want him to snap out and join us, because if you meet the old Whiplash before all this nonsense, you would love him. He's so fun and he's hilarious. And that's why the developers worked with him so well in the beginning too, because he is one of us. We just have to get him back to the space where he becomes one of us again, because he's gotten lost and we need him to come back on the path in the future.
Well, Emily, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for spending all this energy and knowledge and sharing it with us and the rest of the QSI movement. Is there any final words that you'd like to say before we go?
Well, first of all, thank you, Ian. I've had such a fun time getting to know, what is the community interested in? What do they want to learn? How can we kind of propel into the future, etc. So closing statements, I'm kind of known for these. I'm drawing a blank right now. But I would say just keep pushing. If you truly believe in white hats from control, if you truly, truly believe that nothing can stop what's coming, and that where we go one, we go all, you have to know that we're on the right path and that things are heading in the right direction. And with all these bonuses and everything being thrown our way, there's no reason for anybody to not want the path that we're on, because that is the path that everyone has been trying to get to their whole lives, whether they knowingly were in the movement or not in the movement. And so if you're being given this gift, I would say treasure that opportunity. Don't let it go to waste. And once you have the opportunity, try your best to give the opportunity to as many people as you can afterwards.
Great. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Ian.
After the interview was over, we kept the cameras rolling and had a casual conversation with the TV crew, who, I might add, had no idea what QSI was about or knew anything about what they were getting themselves into when I asked them to help me that day. So here's a portion of that interview.
Is it midnight yet?
It's 10:30. I don't know what to say. Thank you.
No, thank you guys.
And Dad, thank you.
Yes.
Carrie, thank you for going with us.
Yeah.
Especially because you have no idea what's going on. And you're like, what is she saying right now? At least, Carrie, you have some inkling.
Well, from my perspective, I think I'm just speaking for everyone, and I don't really know.
Right.
But the first thing that comes to mind is it's a pyramid, or there's a monetary ulterior motive,
Right.
because that's what we've all been taught.
Exactly.
Everything. I mean, you can't do anything. You can't go on Facebook. You can't watch television without being sold
Yes.
something.
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
everyone, even though they don't agree with it, they accept it
Right.
and fall into it.
Right.
And when something comes along has none of that, you keep looking for
Right.
it.
What's the catch?
Yeah.
Where is it?
Right.
Where is it? So
I kind of had a similar discussion with Anthony about this. So Anthony, he's, I guess, technically our community relations manager, but we're not here to sell you anything. This is a nonprofit educational community. We're just trying to share with you information that we learned because that information could help you. We don't profit off of anything that you ever do. So it's not like network marketing, which I have a little bit of experience in. Network marketing is all about, like, if you recruit somebody and you bring them in as your downline, then you profit off of what they sell. But here, whatever you invest into, I'm not making a dime off of that. So I don't care if you spend 0 XLM or 1 million XLM. It only helps you and, everybody else that you touch in the future. So that doesn't impact me. What impacts me is my humanitarian project is getting this information out to people to help them better their lives. And so if I can do that, if that mission can be accomplished, I didn't talk about this, but I was thinking about that when I saw the questions yesterday. So one of the things about when I was a kid, and my grandparents were very wealthy, was going to some of the finest hotels in the world. And I remember this one experience when I think I was like 5 or 7 years old. We were in Japan. And there's this very famous hotel, but when you walk into the hotel, it's a very long walkway. And they rolled out the red carpet for my grandparents. And basically all of the staff lined up on either side, and they were bowing as my grandparents walked in, and then us as the family. And then the only other staff that were there were at the front desk waiting to check them in. But when you're little and you have no concept of money, you don't know it's because they're wealthy and they've, helped develop the community and stuff like that. So I'm just thinking, wow, this is vacation. So, getting older, then I was like, oh, okay, so if I go into hospitality, I can help other people have what's called peak life experiences. And what is this? This is literally giving everybody their own version of peak life experiences, because what do we provide? Money, freedom, time freedom and the ability to pursue your actual passion without having to worry about money and time. And if we encourage you to actually pursue what you're passionate about and what you are innately good at, as opposed to cabal trading over here, then people just have more oomph in life, I feel. So yeah, it's like my humanitarian project is helping people have peak life experiences.
How do you provide for yourself? Like, how do you...
Financially speaking?
Yeah, financially.
I mean, I have a tiny bit of residual coming in that takes care of my needs, and I live very simply. If it weren't for like this or the party tomorrow, I just stay at home and I just research all day long. So as long as I've got a roof over my head, internet, and groceries, I'm set. I live very, very frugally right now because I don't need anything else. If I go on a trip, I sometimes actually get frustrated because it's taking time away from my research. So.
And which is, it's quite the opposite of somebody that's in it for the money or the fame or the power.
Yes.
Because you dig into their finances and they don't know how to live simply.
Correct.
They can't.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a tell also. Where the commitment is in an organization that's real.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that's an observation of mine.
I was afraid to ask that question in the whole thing, but it makes sense.
You know what's amazing about all this is I'm still rolling,
Oh,
and I've got all this. Now
I'm okay if
we
you guys
won't
want to
use-
post
we won't
any
use
of
any
it.
of that, and he'll let you see any of this before. But I love doing this when everyone thinks it's gone, when it's turned off, because this right here is the best part of the whole thing.
I mean, I've been asked so many times repeatedly by same developers and multiple developers, like, can we pay you something? And every time I'm like, look, guys, my needs are taken, so I don't need anything. Like, even if you give me $1 million right now, that million's just going right back into Stellar. Like, there's so much more value in putting it into an ICO than having it as fiat and paying for gas or something. So my mind is so focused on Stellar. That's why I'm like, well, if you're going to give me something, at least just let me donate it back to the community. So that's all I've been doing. It's just they use my like the C4JW account, the donations wallet, as a pass-through. Whatever comes to us, I just find, what is the best use of it. And I mentioned earlier, like, sometimes the best use is to help out an ICO that's struggling, but we need to hit, a certain tier to get a certain bonus. So you might see the donations wallet put in like I put 35,000 in for Vanguard the other day, but otherwise, like, we fund a lot of the contests, the bonuses, the prizes. It's all done through there.
Wow. Wow. It's impressive.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's really crazy what you've shown the world. It really is. It just makes you feel like finally, like there's something that makes sense.
Yeah. It's like the world didn't make sense before, and we were just struggling to be like, we're trying to all fit in, but why is it so difficult? And now it's like, even though everything's topsy-turvy, everything, at least for me, everything makes sense in this realm.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're raised, if you have good parents, you're raised to be honest and an upstanding citizen in the
Right.
community. And when you get to a certain age, you see that's all a lie.
Yes,
But you still have that moral compass in you to want to be that way.
absolutely.
So I can see where this is very attracting to some people.
Yeah. So since Dad knows nothing about this, I'll share one interesting thing to run around in your head. About, I think it was 2-3 months ago, we launched a project called the Integrity Token. And it was kind of a combination of this old proposal that I had sent to the developers, but I had written it back in 2018 or 2019 timeline, so before I started this. And my concept was, if we know that, the world is good, but it's been hijacked and taken over by the cabal, why can't we just use the same tactics and do it to them? Mm-hmm. Because I'm a student of Sun Tzu, Art of War. Obviously, I'm a student of PsyOps. And for me, everything is a tool, right? The platform. A gun can be used for good and bad, technology good and bad, so strategy good and bad. And I thought if they've come and they've infiltrated our companies, our organizations, our government and religion and everything, culture, family, why don't we just do that? Why don't we go and infiltrate the bad organizations and put the white hats in charge and go, hey, from inside out, let's convert it, and then from top down and from bottom up, let's also teach everybody. So my original concept was like, if we can get, let's say, all levels of education from the the pre-Ks up to the Ks through college, graduate school, and then from your companies and doing some kind of mentorship program, and then with your elderlies and basically tapping every single aspect of society. If we can start teaching them, how do you have more integrity? How do you actually have a life that is moral? And you start teaching that, infusing that, then the elderly would teach the kids, just as the kids would teach the elderly. Everybody would be working in unison for this goal that is a much better plan, I think, because I think people inherently want to do good and they want to have good. They don't want to feel crummy all the time. So that was the initial idea back in 2018, 2019. And what it's kind of transitioned over into is this integrity project, which I'll get to spearhead, but I haven't, kind of figured out how exactly I want to do it. But it'll be essentially kind of like that, because the White Hats have already started the first leg of that. So I think they're waiting for me to kind of push the back half of that, which, obviously I'll need more technology and more training and guidance on to see what's possible and what's not possible. But it's essentially a re-hijacking of the world, but for good. And then once you have, if you study Sun Tzu or psychology, then usually what they tell you is one generation, so 20 to 25 years, it takes roughly 3 generations, maybe 4 generations to change the culture of the planet. So if we know that, we just need to have that for a couple cycles. And then what was crummy is now good, right? 100 years, that's all we need. Sounds like a lot, but it's not. The communists have already been in here for 100 years, so...
And I would imagine, because it's done for good, instead of people trying to fight it, they would accept it and get on board with it a lot quicker. So I bet it would actually...
Yeah, I think it would be faster, and obviously the ones who fight it, they would be the cockroaches, so we would know what it was.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope that you got something out of this. I know that I did. I again just want to thank Emily for the generous amount of time that she spent with me on that day. And again, this was just a portion of the interview. I'll have more later on to show when the time is right. So until then, have a great day, everyone.
Thanks for watching this QSI presentation. To join the QSI community online, just scan these QR codes and connect through our social media. You can also access the QSI mobile training apps and online resources. QSI, by the people, for the people.